Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the FreeMelon Society. Thank you so much for joining me. I am Eli, and today, of course, as usual, we have a very, very important lecture for you. Today, I want to get into the occult, okay? The true mystery science, the true mystery knowledge of the ancients. And I want to provide at least a good introduction into what it is, and how and why it's important. In the past on this channel, we've touched very briefly on natural laws and natural science and whatnot. We've covered general guidelines as to what to eat, what to avoid, into the consequences of erroneous living and erroneous diet. Okay, so today I want to go deeper. Okay, I think it's about that point where I can start getting into this kind of stuff for those of you who've felt the vibe of this channel. So today is going to be an introduction to the knowledge of the occult mysteries. Why I want to do this is because everything that I have shared with you up until this point has been motivated by goals that go beyond merely the health of the body. The health of the physical body is simply a byproduct of following the protocols of the occult sciences, of the mystery arts, of healing and morality. It is not the object, not the end goal, right? Radiant, vibrant health is not it. You know, that's not the finish line. What we are trying to do in life is we are trying to sublimate our bodies, lift them up to a high level, a high degree of purity and refinement, so that they become closer and closer and closer in line to the divinity of the commanding force that commandeers your physical body. This can only be done by the rigorous work of mental, spiritual, and physical purification. And that method of purification of all of these types of bodies is, in fact, the exact object of all of the mystery sciences that span way, way, way back to the time of human creation. So, one thing I'd like to say before we go on, these videos, these lectures, I try to treat this as school, as a classroom, okay? You are here to learn. This channel is not here to entertain, right? There's nothing amusing or entertaining about these lectures, okay? This is strict, hard learning. And it's important that you pay attention to these lectures. If need be, go ahead and download an audio version of this lecture, because what I've done is I've taken some books from the library, and this class, this lecture, this introduction is basically going to be story time. So I'm going to read you several passages from these books, notable passages that would be good in illustrating what the mystery science is. All I ask is that you actually do pay attention, because this stuff is critically important to the progress of humankind, and in so doing, health is something that just takes care of itself. Okay? So, all of the most influential people in history, all of the people who have left their mark in human history and have contributed to the overall good or overall ill of mankind, have one thing in common. They all, whether we know this or not, came from one of the schools of the mystery science, okay? Now, whether it's, oh my god, I don't know, whether it's Copernicus, Galileo, Giordano Bruno from the Renaissance, Voltaire, whether it's the Greek philosophers, Plato, Pliny, Socrates, Aristotle, whether you're a war hero like Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was schooled in the mystery arts. Or whether you're from the darker, the more satanic Luciferian branch of the occult mysteries. The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Schiffs, the Warburgs, the Kennedys, the Onassis family, the Bundys, the entire Bush family, the Darwins, the Wedgwoods, the Royal family, the Saxe-Coburg-Gothas, the Schiffs, the Astors, all of them, all of these people, okay? They all are schooled and trained in occult wisdom. Now, one last word of caution before I actually get into the reading is that occult wisdom, like anything, like any inanimate tool, is simply a tool. What makes it good or evil is how the tool is used. I can't stress this strongly enough, because there are many people out there who are going to hear the word occult, hear the word Freemasonry, which is of course what I've based this channel's name on, and they'll automatically associate it with evil. Okay? That is an error. That is not correct. There is nothing inherently evil about a kitchen knife. It is how the kitchen knife is used that determines whether the action is in line with morality or against morality. Okay? It's very immature to simply dismiss the whole body of powerful occult wisdom simply because evil people have used it in the past. A good person can use that same knowledge and use it for proper moral edification of him or herself and everyone around them, right? Which is what I'm doing here for you today. So, without further ado, let's get into what the occult wisdom is and why it's important. So, the first book I want to read from is called The Lost Keys of Freemasonry by a man named Manly P. Hall. Manly P. Hall was one of the greatest Freemasons of all time, alive in the late 1900s, produced several books, countless lectures. The wisdom of this man is ineffable, to say the least. Many people will regard Manly P. Hall as evil, and it is true that the organization of Freemasonry has and was infiltrated a long time ago by dark elements of Illuminism, satanic Illuminism. And it was infiltrated so that they could use the institution's influence for subversive means. That being the case, anyone who has actually gone through Manly P. Hall's work will recognize the deep wisdom of the teachings. Whether the wisdom has been misused and mistreated by the institution itself is not really relevant. If the reader makes up his mind that Freemasonry is bad, the wisdom locked within is going to be lost on you. So let's start. These are important passages that I've picked out as to what I mean when I say occult wisdom, or natural science, natural law, the mystery science. When I say these words, this is kind of what I'm talking about. Okay, so here we go. The average Mason, as well as the modern student of Masonic ideals, little realizes the cosmic obligation he takes upon himself when he begins his search for the sacred truths of nature as they are concealed in the ancient and modern rituals. He must not lightly regard his vows, and if he would not bring upon himself years and ages of suffering, he must cease to consider Freemasonry solely as a social order, only a few centuries old, and he must realize that the ancient mystic teachings, as perpetuated in the modern rites, are sacred, and that powers unseen and unrecognized mold the destiny of those who consciously and of their own free will take upon themselves the obligations of the fraternity. Freemasonry is not a material thing. It is a science of the soul. Let me repeat that. A science of the soul. It is not a creed or a doctrine, but a universal expression of the divine wisdom. So, a science of the soul. It means that the mystic arts aren't subjective things that you believe in because, some soothsayer with a crystal ball just told you them. You just believe them blindly. There is an exacting science of all of the operations of nature that go on beyond the physical world. With a calculated regularity, this science can be learned and it can be understood. And that is what he's talking about when he's referring to Freemasonic wisdom. He says Freemasonry is a universal expression of divine wisdom. So the wisdom that's locked in your body, let's say when you cut your finger and your body magically heals that finger. Magically. The infinite wisdom responsible for that behavior is the type of wisdom, is the type of information that the mystery science is trying to reveal, is trying to bring out with its teachings, okay? Light Freemasonry, not dark Freemasonry, is a universal expression of divine wisdom, okay? Let's continue. Through purification, through knowledge, and through service to his fellow man, the candidate sequentially unfolds these mystic properties, building better and more perfect bodies through which his constructive thought, emotion, and action liberates, listen to this, liberates the higher nature from bodies which in their crystallized states are incapable of giving him his natural opportunities. That's Manly P. Hall from The Lost Keys of Freemasonry. He's saying that higher levels of mental and spiritual refinement are impossible so long as the coarse body, the physical body, is weighed down and slowed down by the imperfections of erroneous physical life. So now if you go back to my other lectures where I'm talking about what you should eat, what you should abstain from eating, what is proper behavior, moral behavior, you can see why. It's because these practices are not just for health. They're for bringing out spiritual qualities in the person that uplift them above the level of the mundane. Okay? Do you understand? See where I'm going with this? This is exciting. I like this. I like giving you this information. In truth, he must live the life, the result of which is the purification of his body, so that the more attenuated forces of the higher degrees may express themselves through the finer sensitivity of the receiving pole within himself. When he reaches this stage in his growth, he is spiritually worthy to consider advancement into a higher degree. Nature is as much an invisible world as it is a visible world. In other words, there are many natural truths which lie beyond the physical sense perceptions. To believe in the supernatural is folly, but to believe in the superphysical is wisdom. I hope you heard that right. Every phenomenon, physical and superphysical, is susceptible of analysis and classification. The modern metaphysician does not believe in miracles, nor did the ancient Egyptian priests. Somewhere in nature, there is a cause for every effect, but as there are many effects which baffle our understanding, so there are many causes which elude our perception. Science acknowledges cause and effect on the physical plane of action, but it has not yet discovered or rediscovered that all causes are intrinsically superphysical. That is, all causes lie in the moral, mental, or psychological field. Right? Very powerful wisdom here. All of the Greek philosophers, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, all these people, Pliny, Hippocrates, Pythagoras, all these people were members of these occult societies, and they had to go through rigorous initiation protocols before being accepted. Just a quick example before we keep reading. Pythagoras, okay? We all know who Pythagoras is. Well, maybe. But anyway, look him up if you don't know. One of the things that Pythagoras had to do in order to gain initiation into the mystery school was go through a 40-day fast. A 40-day fast. Why? Because a 40-day fast was understood as one of the only ways to completely purify the body and the mind, so that after, on the other end of this 40-day fast, the mind and the body would be ready to receive the higher teachings. Okay? This is very powerful stuff that we're dealing with here, right? So, it was customary for members of initiate bodies to accept candidates of only exceptional distinction. Initiation was an honor bestowed for unusual merit and integrity. The ancient rule holds good to this day in most occult schools. You can't just be a regular Joe Schmo who immorally eats meat and kills animals and pollutes his body and just has you can't be one of these people if you have any desire to gain entry into an occult school. You need to be a pure moral being. Okay, that's what he's saying. The thesmopher is the personification of one of the great laws of occultism. A thesmopher is an initiate who simply guides the aspirant through the ritual, the helper for the newly aspiring member. He also represents the aspect of universal law which prevents any man from attaining a degree of knowledge greater than his own integrity. Oh man. Next, I'd like to give some passages from an essay written by C.W. Leadbeater, who is another occult Freemason. He reached a very high level of spiritual and physical mastery. The stuff this man was able to do with his body and with his mind, it would beggar belief. This is his definition of what the occult is. How shall we define occultism? The word is derived from the Latin occultus, hidden, so that it is the study of the hidden laws of nature. Since all the great laws of nature are in fact working in the invisible world far more than in the visible, occultism involves the acceptance of a much wider view of nature than that which is ordinarily taken. Wow. The occultist, then, is a man who studies all of the laws of nature that he can reach, or of which he can hear, and as a result of his study, he identifies himself with these laws and devotes his life to the service of evolution. I think everyone should rewind the video and listen to that paragraph again. The next passage I'd like to give you is from a book called The Encyclopedia of Ancient and Forbidden Knowledge by an author who refers to himself as Zolar. Again, another book jammed with very powerful information. The very first step for the reader into the hidden pathway of nature's mysteries is the face-to-face confrontation with a startling fact. The fact that all his preconceptions, all his education, all his accumulated materialistic wisdom are unable to account for the simple phenomena which transpire and transcend the action and interaction of life forces on the planet on which he lives. He's saying that science cannot account for most of the things that we just kind of take for granted every day. Childbirth. If you think you can describe materialistically how that happens, you're wrong, right? Nobody understands actually why and how these things work, right? When you really start thinking about it. Yeah, you're gonna say, oh, well, sperm, join with the egg, and then, okay, where does the information come from? What's happening? What forces, and like all this kind of stuff. I mean, nobody can really describe this, right? It's that intelligence that we just take for granted because it happens every day. But Zolar here is reminding you that these things are totally beyond your comprehension. Okay, moving on. The only equipment which man has found useful, and which will repay the cost of transportation, is an unbiased, open mind, logical reasoning, genuine common sense, and a calm, reflective brain. Anything else on the voyage into the unknown, upon which we are now about to embark, is simply useless, costly dead weight, hence so far as modern science is concerned. The less the reader has, the better. That's the Encyclopedia of Ancient and Forbidden Wisdom. That's a bit of a BAM! Jab to modern conventional science. Science is useful, but it's only useful when it's harmonized with holistic intelligence. Intellect on its own is disastrous. We dropped a bomb on Hiroshima. That's what intellect without holistic intelligence does, right? Next book I want to read from is from an author named Max Heindel, who is a Rosicrucian. So Rosicrucianism is a different branch of the mystery science. It is not Freemasonry, but it uses the same natural principles and divine truths in just a different style. Kind of like how martial arts is all about self-defense, and there are different approaches and different styles to get you to the same result, the ability to defend yourself, right? Think about it like that. The first step of occultism is the study of the invisible worlds. These worlds are invisible to the majority of people because of the dormancy of the finer and higher senses whereby they may be perceived, in the same way that the physical world about us is perceived through the physical senses. The majority of people are on a similar footing in regard to the superphysical worlds as the man who is born blind in our world of the sense. Although light and color are all about him, he is unable to see them. To him they are non-existent and incomprehensible, simply because he lacks the sense of sight wherewith to perceive them. Objects he can feel, they seem real, but light and color are beyond his ken. So with the greater part of humanity. They feel and they see objects and hear sounds in the physical world, but the other realms which the clairvoyant calls the higher worlds are as incomprehensible to him as light and color are to the blind man. Because the blind man cannot see color and light, however, is no argument against their existence and reality. Neither is it an argument that because most people cannot see the superphysical worlds, no one can do so. If the blind man obtains his sight, he will see light and color. If the higher senses of those blind to the superphysical worlds are awakened by proper methods, they also will be able to behold the worlds which are now hidden from them. Continuing on with Rosicrucian cosmoconception, this is Max Heindel about the soul. The soul is here to acquire experience through its instruments. These are the tools furnished to each at birth, and they are good, bad, or indifferent according to what we have learned through past experience in building them. Such as they are, we must work with them, if at all. If we have become aroused from the usual lethargy and are anxious to progress, the question naturally arises, what must I do? Without well-kept tools, okay, listen to this very carefully. Without well-kept tools, the mechanic can do no effective work. Similarly, the instruments of the ego must be cleansed and sharpened, then we may commence to work to some purpose. As one works with those wonderful tools, they themselves improve, with proper use, and they become more and more efficient to aid the work. The object of this work is, and here it is in a nutshell, union with the higher self. That is the object of all of it, of life in general, of what you're doing in your physical body, right? You are searching for experience, and you're searching for tools to reunify you with the better part of yourself, the higher aspect of yourself, right? So you'll notice a recurring theme with all of these wonderful, wonderful, wise occultists, right? There's a current theme of laws that are invisible to the human eye, laws through which, through purification, can become known to the person, to the seeker. The more closely you follow them and align yourselves with them, and the more you discover your obligation to those laws, the healthier you become, the more intelligent you become, the more wise you become, the more pure you become. You simply become closer and closer and closer to what could be described as divinity, right? You know, a divine soul in a physical body, right? That is what the mystery science is hoping to teach in its understandings and its wisdom. That is an introduction to the occult link between all of the other lectures that I've done previous to this and this, right? So when we talk about curing disease and healing disease and not eating bad food and all this kind of stuff, you can see why, right? Purifying the body of all of that kind of nonsense that culture has taught us is food, and all of these behaviors that are totally immoral and do nothing for the ego, to nurture the ego, right? These all have to be cleansed and purified, right? On a physical level. And then higher faculties start to get awakened. I'll finish off with a quote from Arnold Ehret from the Mucusless Diet Healing System, just on disease and the nature of disease, just to finish things off. Disease is an effort of the body to eliminate waste, mucus, and toxemias, and this system assists nature in the most perfect and natural way. Not the disease, but the body is to be healed. It must be cleansed, freed from waste and foreign matter, from mucus and toxemias accumulated since childhood. You cannot buy health in a bottle. You cannot heal your body, that is, cleanse your system in a few days. You must make compensation for the wrong you have done your body all during your life. So these health practices, by some of the great healers of our time, they harmonize with the teachings of the occult science. And where there is that harmony of a certain teaching with the natural truths that govern reality, then what you come away with is truth. Real, actual wisdom. That wisdom will empower you, or if you choose not to find your obligation, not to align yourselves with these natural moral truths, then the result is a divorce from the harmony that naturally comes by following these principles, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for following me on this journey. And of course, it's just an introduction. You know, obviously you can do your own research. There's lots of stuff here that we can share. So I hope that sparks an interest in the deeper occult sciences and ancient wisdom. If you're enjoying these classes, if these sessions are worthwhile to you, if you are learning something from these video lectures and these video classes, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell notification. I do upload whenever I can. You know, you don't want to miss these important lectures when they do come out. With that being said, thank you again so much for listening to me. Happy health, happy life, and we will see you next time on the FreeMelon Society. Thank you.